Imagine, imagine you are on the verge of this massive medical breakthrough. Like, you have an idea for a device that can restore sight to a person who's been blind for over 30 years.
Wow, 30 years.
Yeah, over 30 years. A device that could, fundamentally change the way we perform eye surgery forever. But there is a massive catch.
There's always a catch, right?
Right. To actually build this revolutionary thing, you have to pack your bags, resign from your really prestigious academic job, and travel across the world to work in foreign labs.
Wait, resign? Why would you have to go that far?
Because your own university back home, along with the National Health Institutes, they flat out refuse to fund your research.
I mean, that sounds like a fabricated premise for a dramatic film.
Yeah.
The brilliant, visionary scientist fighting the entire establishment just to give a miraculous gift to humanity.
It really does. But it is not a movie. It is the very real, very incredible story of Dr. Patricia Bath. So welcome to today's deep dive.
It's great to be here.
Our mission today is to really unpack the story-driven biography of a woman who became the first Black female physician to receive a medical patent in the United States.
Which is a huge milestone on its own.
Absolutely. But as you are about to discover, her legacy goes so far beyond just a single piece of surgical technology.
Yeah, her work completely shifted how the medical field thinks about public health, equality, and just the fundamental right to access care.
Yeah.
She was an inventor, yes, but she was also a humanitarian who dismantled barriers on, multiple fronts.
Okay, let's unpack this. Usually we imagine medical breakthroughs happening in fully funded, pristine, state-of-the-art laboratories, with endless resources and massive teams of people.
Right, the classic Hollywood science montage.
Exactly. But Dr. Bath's story actually starts in a Harlem apartment in the 1940s with a childhood chemistry set.
Yeah, to really understand the revolutionary doctor she became, we first have to look at the environment that nurtured that intellect. She was born in Harlem in 1942.
And her parents really pushed her, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely. They instilled this relentless work ethic in her. Their constant refrain to her was, to never settle for less than your best.
And they really backed up those words with action. I mean, her mother, who was descended from African slaves and Cherokee Native Americans, she noticed her daughter's intense curiosity and actually bought her that first chemistry set.
Which was probably a pretty big deal with them.
Oh, for sure. And her father, a Trinidadian immigrant, he actually became the first Black motorman for the New York City subway.
No way.
Yeah. And he gave her this profound appreciation for exploring different cultures.
So she had this combination of, hands-on scientific curiosity from her mother and a really broad worldly perspective from her father. It basically created the perfect intellectual foundation.
Right. And by the time she was at Charles Evans Hughes High School, she was heavily inspired by the medical humanitarian work of Dr. Albert Schweitzer.
She was already looking for ways to apply science to human suffering, even as a teenager.
Which leads to her applying for and winning a National Science Foundation scholarship while she's still in high school.
That's just wild.
I know. This lands her in a summer research program at Yeshiva University and Harlem Hospital. She's placed in a lab studying the connections between cancer, nutrition, and stress.
But she wasn't just washing beakers as a high school intern, was she?
Not at all. She was actively studying the effects of streptomycin residue on bacteria.
Streptomycin, that's an antibiotic, right?
Right. She was observing how cells reacted to various chemical stressors, and at just 18 years old, she concluded that cancer was a catabolic disease.
Okay, wait, let's pause there, because that sounds incredibly advanced for a teenager.
It really is.
What exactly does it mean for cancer to be a catabolic disease?
Well, in biology, metabolism has two main parts. There's anabolism, which is building tissue up, and catabolism, which is breaking tissue down.
Okay, so building up versus breaking down.
Exactly. Dr. Bath recognized that cancer causes the body to break down its own healthy tissues to fuel the disease.
Oh.
Yeah. She theorized that the rapid tumor growth everyone else was focusing on was actually just a localized symptom of this much larger systemic breakdown happening across the entire body.
I want to make sure I'm grasping the magnitude of this. Most people were studying the tumor itself, right? The actual lump.
Right, the immediate problem.
But she is looking at the entire bodily system. It's like instead of just examining a single wilted leaf on a tree, she decided to analyze the chemical composition of the soil, the root system, the surrounding weather patterns.
That is a perfect analogy. Yes.
What's fascinating here is that this early research perfectly highlights her core genius. She didn't just look at localized symptoms. She looked for underlying patterns.
Connecting the dots that others missed.
Exactly, connecting the cancer to broader issues like systemic stress and nutritional deficiencies. She even developed a mathematical equation to predict cancer cell growth based on those varying inputs.
Wait, how does a teenager map out a mathematical equation for cancer growth?
Well, by meticulously tracking variables over time. She correlated the rate of cellular breakdown with specific nutritional deficiencies.
So she was essentially proving that the environment the cell lives in dictates how aggressively the disease spreads.
Yes, her models were so accurate and groundbreaking that the head of the research program actually published her findings in a scientific paper.
That is insane. She landed on the front page of the New York Times for this, right?
Yep, and she won a Merit Award from Mademoiselle magazine in 1960.
A teenager presenting predictive mathematical models at international conferences. It's like she was playing 3D chess while most high schoolers were just learning to play checkers.
Truly. But that specific ability to look past the symptom and find the systemic root cause, it didn't just apply to her lab work.
Right. It profoundly shaped how she viewed the healthcare system as a whole.
Exactly. That systems thinking mindset became her superpower as she moved into her medical training.
So she attends Howard University for medical school, and her arrival coincides with the passage of the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
Talk about a pivotal moment in history.
Seriously. She's coming of age as a medical professional during one of the most turbulent and transformative times in America.
And she immediately gets involved, doesn't she?
Oh, yeah. She co-founded the Student National Medical Association, and she actually became its first woman president.
That's incredible.
And then the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. happens in 1968. She channels that immense grief and outrage into direct action.
What did she do?
She organized Howard University medical students to provide volunteer healthcare services for the Poor People's Campaign in Resurrection City in Washington, D.C.
This period is it's the critical convergence of her clinical training and her social consciousness.
Completely. And after Howard, she returns to her roots in New York to take an internship at Harlem Hospital Center.
Which had just become affiliated with Columbia University, right?
Yes. And because her brain was wired to look for systemic patterns, she noticed a deeply disturbing discrepancy.
Right. She's walking the halls of Harlem Hospital and sees massive epidemic proportions of blind patients.
Yeah, just an overwhelming number.
But when she walks the halls of the wealthy Columbia Eye Clinic, she doesn't see anywhere near that volume of blindness.
Now, instead of just accepting that as a tragedy of poverty, she actually starts compiling the data.
Because at that time, Harlem Hospital didn't even have dedicated ophthalmologists on staff.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. She gathered the demographic and clinical data and proved definitively that African Americans had an 8 times higher prevalence of glaucoma-induced blindness compared to the white patients at Columbia.
8 times higher.
Yes, and she published the first scientific paper documenting this staggering disparity.
Before we talk about how she solved this, let's establish the baseline for you, the listener. What exactly is glaucoma doing to the eye mechanically that makes it so dependent on early screening?
Sure. Glaucoma is essentially an issue of fluid dynamics in the eye.
Okay.
Your eye constantly produces a fluid called aqueous humor, which normally drains out through a spongy tissue meshwork. But if that drainage system gets clogged, the fluid builds up.
And so the pressure inside the eye increases.
Exactly. And that pressure slowly crushes the optic nerve, which is what transmits visual information to the brain.
And because that pressure buildup is incredibly slow, you don't really feel it happening, right? Not until your vision starts going dark around the edges.
Precisely. It's painless and very gradual. If you have access to regular preventative eye exams, a doctor can easily catch that pressure spike with a quick test.
And then they just prescribe drops to manage it.
Right. But if you live in an underserved community without access to preventative care, or you lack the funds and transportation to visit a specialty clinic, that pressure goes completely unchecked.
Until the optic nerve is dead and the blindness is permanent.
Yes. And here's where it gets really interesting. Dr. Bath realizes this blindness isn't a medical mystery. It is a structural failure.
So in 1976, she pioneers an entirely new discipline in medicine called community ophthalmology.
Yeah, she literally invented the discipline.
But my question is, why was this considered a new discipline? I mean, it's like realizing the fire department only puts out fires in rich neighborhoods and deciding the solution is to go hand out fire alarms and extinguishers to everyone else. Shouldn't the medical establishment have already been operating this way?
You would think so.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, The medical establishment of the 1970s was heavily reliant on a traditional reactive fee-for-service model.
So basically, wait until they're sick and they come to us.
Exactly. The philosophy was, the clinic is open. It is the patient's responsibility to come to us when they are sick. Dr. Bath forced the medical community to look at demographic public health data alongside clinical practice.
She argued that waiting for a marginalized patient to go blind before treating them was a failure of the profession itself.
Absolutely. So community ophthalmology was about taking the care out of the ivory tower and putting it directly into the neighborhood.
She literally persuaded her professors from the Columbia Eye Clinic to leave their pristine facilities, come down to Harlem Hospital, and perform eye surgeries on blind patients completely free of charge.
Which was unheard of.
Yeah.
She combined public health, community medicine, and ophthalmology into a single proactive discipline.
She was actually on the team that performed the first eye surgery at Harlem Hospital in 1969, and from there, the list of barriers she breaks is just staggering.
It really is.
But I think we need to slow down and acknowledge the immense pressure of her timeline. She became the first African-American to complete an ophthalmology residency at New York University.
Right.
She became the first woman ophthalmologist on the faculty at the Jules Stein Eye Institute at UCLA, and the first woman in the U.S. to head an ophthalmology residency program.
She is navigating the absolute highest echelons of academia and medicine in the 1970s and 80s. These were spaces that were overwhelmingly white and male.
The isolation must have been intense.
The isolation and the constant need to prove her confidence, despite her obvious brilliance, must have been an exhausting underlying reality of her daily life.
And that institutional friction comes to a massive head when she decides she wants to tackle cataracts.
Ah, yes. Cataracts.
For the listener, cataracts occur when the natural lens of the eye becomes clouded, usually due to aging proteins clumping together. It's one of the leading causes of blindness worldwide.
Dr. Bath had established herself in community outreach, but now she wanted to advance the actual surgical tools used to remove these cataracts.
She envisioned using lasers for cataract surgery as early as 1981.
But when she applied for grants and resources to pursue this innovation at UCLA, she was met with intense resistance. She was denied funding by both the National Institutes of Health and the National Eye Institute.
Wait, she's the head of the residency program? She is a proven innovator. Why the flat-out rejection? Was it institutional bias, or was the technology just considered too wild at the time?
It was a potent mixture of both, honestly. In the early 1980s, lasers in medicine were still largely viewed with deep skepticism, almost like science fiction.
Right, like Star Trek stuff.
Yeah. But you also cannot separate the rejection from the systemic biases of the era. She did not fit the traditional mold of the researchers who were typically awarded massive, high-risk technological grants.
The establishment was inherently conservative.
Very conservative. And an African-American woman proposing a radical laser surgery device simply did not get the benefit of the doubt.
So UCLA essentially tells her no. Most people in her position would just swallow their pride, focus on their administrative duties, and collect their prestigious paycheck.
Oh, for sure. But she remembered her parents' mandate to never settle for less than her best.
Right.
In 1986, she made a profound professional gamble. She took a sabbatical, resigned her position as chair of ophthalmology, packed her bags, and went searching for the best laser laboratories in the world that would actually let her test her hypothesis.
So UCLA essentially wouldn't buy her the tools, so she goes to Europe to basically build a lightsaber for the human eye.
That's exactly what she did. She travels to centers of excellence in France, England, and Germany.
She conducts research at the Rothschild Eye Institute in Paris, and then lands at a specialized laser medical center in Berlin.
And it is there, in Germany, working with human eyes from an eye bank, that she finally builds and perfects her device.
And she patents it in 1988, becoming the first African-American woman to receive a medical patent.
She called it the laser phaco probe, which is short for laser photoablative cataract surgery.
Let's break down that terminology. What does photoablative actually mean in a surgical context, and how did this probe change the patient experience compared to the older methods?
So prior to her invention, the standard method for removing a cataract was manual extracapsular extraction, or early forms of phacoemulsification, which used ultrasound.
Okay, what does that actually look like for the patient?
It often required mechanically grinding and scraping the clouded lens out of the eye. It carried a high risk of tearing the delicate membrane holding the lens, and recovery could be painful and slow.
Ugh, it sounds incredibly invasive. You're essentially taking microscopic physical tools and scraping away at the inside of the eye.
It was. But the laser phaco probe changed the mechanism entirely.
Yeah.
Photo refers to light, and ablative refers to removal.
Okay, so light removal.
Right. Instead of cutting or grinding, her device used a specific type of laser that breaks the molecular bonds of the cataract tissue without generating heat.
No heat, so it doesn't burn anything.
Exactly. It vaporizes the clouded lens cleanly and precisely without burning or damaging the surrounding healthy tissue of the eye.
So she essentially built a microscopic, heatless lightsaber for the human eye, which allows the surgeon to just dissolve the blockage.
That's a great way to picture it. Furthermore, the probe was designed to simultaneously irrigate the eye with fluid and suction out the vaporized lens material. It cleared the way for a new artificial lens to be inserted with unprecedented speed and safety. It was a total paradigm shift.
So it wasn't just a minor upgrade.
Not at all. It improved surgical accuracy, dramatically reduced patient recovery time, and meant that millions of people who might have been too frail for the older traumatic surgery could now safely get their sight back.
And she eventually secured 5 U.S. patents, continuously improving the method by later incorporating pulsed ultrasound alongside the laser.
She was always iterating.
Having revolutionized the high-tech, cutting-edge tools of surgery, you would assume she might just retire to a lucrative career in private practice or high-end consulting.
You'd think that's the natural next step, but she did the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah, she spent the rest of her life ensuring those high-tech tools, as well as basic preventative care, reached the most marginalized people on the planet.
So she goes back to her public health roots.
Exactly. She co-founded the American Institute for the Prevention of Blindness, or the AIPB, alongside a psychiatrist and a pediatrician.
And the organization operated on one very simple, powerful core belief. Eyesight is a basic human right.
A human right, not a luxury.
She traveled the world as the director of the AIPB, going to Tanzania, Kenya, and North Africa. And she wasn't just bringing high-tech lasers with her. She was providing newborns with free eye drops, vitamins, and vaccinations.
Which is so crucial.
But why the focus on vitamins and vaccines for an eye surgeon?
Because in many developing nations, the leading causes of childhood blindness aren't complex cataracts. They are basic nutritional and infectious diseases.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, severe vitamin A deficiency causes the cornea to dry out and scar. Measles infections can rapidly lead to corneal ulceration and permanent blindness.
It's preventative.
Very much so.
Yeah.
By handing out simple vitamins and measles vaccines, she was preventing thousands of children from ever needing a surgeon in the first place. She essentially scaled her Harlem community ophthalmology model to a global level.
The contrast is just amazing. And despite inventing this incredibly complex laser device, if you ask Dr. Bath what her proudest moment was, her personal best, she didn't point to the patent office or the laser lab in Berlin.
No, she pointed to a moment in North Africa.
She used a keratoprosthesis, which is an artificial cornea, to restore the sight of a woman who had been completely blind for over 30 years.
Just imagine that. Decades in darkness, and Dr. Bath gave her back the light.
It's unbelievable.
That moment perfectly encapsulates her priorities. The technology, the patents, the math, they were always just a means to an end.
Right. The ultimate goal was always the human impact, the relief of suffering.
Exactly. And she also kept pushing the boundaries of medical education to ensure her future doctors were better prepared.
Oh, yeah. She became a massive advocate for telemedicine long before it was standard.
Way ahead of her time.
She pushed for the development of 3D virtual labs for surgical training, proving that if residents had better, realistic virtual environments to practice in, they achieved significantly better outcomes when operating on real patients.
She was always advocating for those who would come after her. In 2019, she actually testified before the United States Senate in a hearing about gender disparities in STEM and the lack of female inventors.
Trying to fix the system from the top down.
Right. She wanted to ensure the next generation of women wouldn't face the same institutional skepticism and funding rejections she had to overcome.
Her legacy is just dripping with accolades. She was inducted into the Hunter College Hall of Fame. In 2021, she was announced as one of the first 2 Black women to ever be inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame.
Which was long overdue.
And in 2024, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. So what does this all mean? When you look at her life, there is this beautiful contradiction to her legacy.
How do you mean?
Well, she is celebrated in the history books for creating a highly complex laser probe, but her own proudest moments involve delivering basic eye drops and vitamins to children in rural villages.
This raises an important question for you, the listener, as you consider her life's work. How do we measure the true value of an innovator? Is it the technical complexity of the pattern they file, or is it the reach of their compassion?
That's a great point.
Dr. Bath's true genius was her ability to bridge the massive gap between cutting-edge medical technology and boots-on-the-ground human rights work. She proved that you can be the brilliant mind looking through a high-powered microscope in Berlin and also be the deeply empathetic person handing out vaccines in Kenya.
It is an astounding journey. To quickly recap, we started with a young girl in a Harlem apartment, mixing chemicals from a toy set, analyzing the holistic root causes of cellular disease.
Right.
She grows up to challenge a reactive medical establishment, invents a revolutionary laser device after her own national health institutes refuse to fund her, and spends her life restoring sight to the forgotten and marginalized across the globe.
She didn't just cure blindness in her patients, she cured a kind of systemic blindness within the medical field itself.
Oh, I like how you phrased that.
Yeah, she forced doctors and institutions to see the structural barriers that were keeping people sick and demanded they take responsibility for dismantling them.
And that leads to a really profound thought for you to mull over today. Dr. Bath's story proves that true scientific advancement isn't just about inventing a sharper scalpel or a faster computer or a more precise laser.
It's about having the deep empathy to ask who gets to use it and who has access to the care.
Exactly. Innovation without access is incomplete. If the technology doesn't reach the people who need it most, the innovation has failed its primary purpose.
Couldn't agree more.
Which leaves us with this final question for you to explore on your own. As you look around your industry, your community, or the world at large, what other systemic barriers out there are just waiting for a brilliant, multidisciplinary mind to dismantle them? If a single doctor from Harlem could pack her bags, cross the world, and change how humanity sees Mark, what could you do if you refuse to settle for less than your best? Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey into the life of Dr. Patricia Bath. We enthusiastically encourage you to tune in for our next deep dive, where we'll unpack another fascinating story. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we will see you next time.